Reverend Dr. Martha Creek is widely known in New Thought. Her trainings approach deep inner work as an adventure with a sense of curiosity and wonder. A master of the art of right questioning, she calls forth the most stubborn and self-defeating patterns to create a new way of being, literally. Ordained in religious science and divine science, Martha has served as Great Lakes Unity consultant and is a member of the Unity Institute faculty. She has attended Emerson Theological Seminary, master's and doctorate, Byron Katie School for the Work, and Hoffman Institute. She is a healthy congregations facilitator and trainer, and we love her. Welcome, Reverend Martha.
She loves you too. She really does love y'all. And somebody said yesterday, the first time they heard me say, I love you and I can't help it, they thought, she's weird. And now she said, I understand what you mean. So who we love is really none of their business. Right? I mean, ain't this good news? Ain't this good news for today? So, I mean, every time I take a podium like this, for 20-some years, I've been invited as guests to take podiums like this and to record talks and send them in. And we talked about, I've got beautiful friends and colleagues here. We took a road trip from Unity Village to come over this morning. So thank you all for being here. And it's folks that are here for the affiliated New Thought Network and what New Thought means for us and for those of us that are growth-minded. A very big difference between growth-mindedness and fixed-mindedness. Have you noticed? And if we don't mistake that everybody's growth-minded, we're going to have a better time of it. So then we will be drawn more to and more in integrity with ourselves to lean toward people that are more growth-minded. That says we understand, we can understand the mysteries of the universe. We're not here to make sense out of certain things that we can't make sense out of in this dimension. So my greatest spiritual practice, I'm often asked that in interviews and things, is to accept the mystery of it. How does that sound? It's like, well, internally we're going like, and not just internally sometimes, like, no, thank you. I'm not into the mystery of it. I know how it ought to be, and I'm going to control how it ought to be, and I'm going to manipulate how it's going to be, and I'm going to coerce and charm and will my way through it, and then wonder why I'm depressed or despaired or exhausted. Instead of like, no, I'm going to be better off if I accept the mystery of things sometimes. And then to the degree then I can live out. I mean, we won't ever take for granted a little lyric like this. I am here. Remember what we sung just a minute ago? I'm here for my awakening. I'm here again this morning for my awakening. I'm here mic'd up again this morning for my awakening. I'm here living out the integrity of my own soul's evolution to bring forth whatever gifts I have and to share them out into the world for my own awakening. And if anybody else awakens as a result of that, that's God's business. But whose soul, if we're responsible for anything, whose evolution are we responsible for? All together, we could have a little choir. We could have a note, just one little note. We'll go, me, 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 me. Like, oh, ain't that good news? Then it's like, what she do, what he do, what she should, he wants, I want, I need. It's like, oh, wait a minute. I'm here for my awakening. I'll be better off if I just go with that. then you'll just get a cup of tea and watch their antics. Oh my, that was me just a minute ago. There's not a thing they can say or do that I can't relate to. And talk about humility. Like, I'm always just one thought away from that. One thought, one unquestioned thought away from that, whatever that is. So, humble, clearer, in integrity with the one thing, the one place in the world I may have some control over sometimes, depending on when I slept last, ate last, and who gave me my way this morning. Because what happens when we don't get our way? You know, we'll call this part True Confessions of the High Righteous Spiritual Types. So when it doesn't go my way, like, well, just don't invite her. She is so critical. And don't invite her because she's so judgmental. Criticizing the critical, judging the judgmental, and complaining about the complainers. In the name of spirituality, then we'll hold hands and say, let there be peace on earth. Which is why I say they won't let me lead the peace song, because you know darn well what I say is, tell the truth, which is let there be peace on earth and let it begin with her. And as soon as she apologizes, I'll consider it. And as soon as he quits smoking, I'll think about it. And as soon as they invite me to all their parties, I'll think about it. Peace on earth. It's like, wait a minute. What if that's true? What if it's, I am here for an awakening, like, let there be peace on earth. And the only contribution to peace on earth I'm going to make today is what peace I make here. So, you remember those early little memories where you knew you were here to change the world? You know, that little knock? It was like, you're here on purpose. And you're like, oh shit. Really? Like, with these people? Like, on purpose. It's like, come in, come in, come in. And the more externally focused we get, the more exhausted we get, and the more tired. So it's what I believe when people say they've got these Martha-isms, and one of them is go within or go without. So it's literal. But oh, the allure. Oh, the allure to teach them a thing or two. In the name of kindness, of course. So, you know, we could talk all day. Like, how do we react when we believe the world should be kind and they don't show up as that? True confessions. 3 Hail Marys, you'll be clear. So how do you react when you think they should be kind and they're not? How do you react and respond when you think you want them to be kind and they didn't show up as that? It's like, well, not all that kindly. Like, let's start there. And for me, it's a full-time job. So then all the kindness I can ever bring to the world won't be trying to whip them into a kind shape, whacking them over the head with something. And like, more guilt, more shame, more blaming, more complaining, more criticism, more fault-finding, more nitpicking. And just notice what happened to your spirit just as I kind of went through that little litany. Like, who could bear it for long? Versus, I've got to, like, accept that that's a part of me And it's not all of me. And the more that part, the natives taught it as, the metaphor of like which wolf's going to want, I've got an inner wolf, a dark wolf, and a light wolf, or a black wolf and a white wolf, or a mean wolf and a better wolf. It's like which wolf's going to win. It's like the one I feed. And it, at least for me, it's not going to be because I suppress the other wolf and depress the other wolf and deny the other wolf or pretend the other wolf. But until I sit with that, those large, unmet, unresolved feelings and fear and pain and worry and abandonment, rejection, and all the traumas that went in place innocently way back there, to say all of those parts are waiting for some care from me, some love, some being held. And not just this notion of I'm healed, and I hear it most, and I ask too. I remember asking somebody 20-some years ago, like, Lord have mercy, when is enough enough? Like, how many books do you have to read? How many workshops do you have to go to? How many Martha Creek sessions do I have to have? And of course, she knew, she laughed, she was decades ahead of me. And she said, oh, it's simple, honey, just every morning check to see if you have a pulse. Y'all go ahead and check. And if you have one, that's how you know. Like, we've still got some work to do here. And it shifted for me over time, because it used to be like work was like drudgery. Like, oh, there's so much work to do. Well, see, that's a little part of me. Y'all have that part? Like, oh, I have to do that again. How much of that do I have to do? So let's just give that part some space. So just take your right hand and lay it right up on your forehead. And just sigh a little bit. Like, oh. And if only they would do that. And if only he'd quit doing that. And so just give it some expression. See, notice it already feels better. So see, we can like set a timer and say, I'm going to give myself a 10-minute rant every day. And just let it out. Like, let it have some life. Like, I'm frustrated, I'm irritated, I'm let down, I'm disappointed. Like, oh my God, didn't they listen to one single word of that? Oh my God, they promised. We have a contract. Any of y'all done that? Like, oh, you promise? Hey, could you sign this and say you promise? Like, oh, now they signed it. Then what do? What they've always done? Like, but you signed this. It's like, yeah, guess who that was for? 10 more years of delusion for me. Oh, I am here for my awakening. So until I have an awakening, you know how it goes? That's waiting on the next corner. For my awakening. For my awakening. So think about it then in terms of, where does it leave us then? So if today you actually meant it, I'm here for my awakening, how would you be for whatever crosses your path? How would you be with that? Shout it out. I'd be more loving about it. I'd be more open to it. This is an open mindset. How else would you be? You don't have to like it a bit. I'd be more forgiving about it. I'd be more accepting about it. You don't have to like it. Are you getting this part? You don't have to like it a bit. You sure don't have to love it. And if anybody if somebody has a flat tire and they jump out and go, oh, goody, I got a flat tire. Like, you drive off. Like, you leave them there with their party and that flat tire. But we don't have to like it. We don't have to love it. And we can be more compassionate about it. We can be more understanding about it, more inclusive. We claim to be inclusive. Like, oh, well, that's just if it goes my way. Versus more accepting. more open-minded, more forgiving. Herein lies the power of the universe. Herein lies the power of the universe for me to discover. And it's either do it the old way, which has been handed down since creation, 2,000 recorded years, or be the one that says, I'm going to be the new way with this. Whatever comes to me, I'm going to be with it in a new way, a neostasis, a new way of being, not homeostasis, not handing down to the next 7 generations what's been handed down. But I'm going to be one of the ones that says, there's a new way to be with this. There's a new thought to have about this. There's a new choice I can make in this that's substantially, exponentially going to affect my life experience, and therefore the whole of humanity, if quantum theory is true. So if I want to be a change agent for the world, and I want to be something better, and I want to create a new world and a world that works for all, full-time job. And then the more I can rest at night. Did I bring to it all I knew to bring to it? And when I can't, when I'm not proud about how I showed up or proud of how I responded, not to shame and hate and recriminate and guilt myself again over and over and over again, versus the care of my own soul that would go into that part and comfort it. So we learned something from that. Like, I'm not proud of that moment, and it was included in my awakening. It was where I was at the time. It's all I could bring to it at the time. And I'm going to learn from that, and what I'm learning is not for back there. What I'm learning today is for whatever's coming, whatever's up the road from here. So in the workshop, I hope you can stay, and something will prompt you to stay, even though you think you have something else to do. Something else will prompt you to stay, like, she's just crazy enough. There might be something to that. Or something else will prompt you. So stay if you can. And we'll be looking at these very grounded practices on how to do some of this. And meeting our own boogers with anybody here free of boogers? Like, I get excited when I ask, because I'm just sure one day somebody will throw their hand up, and we want to film it, of course, because you'll probably ascend this afternoon. And we'll film it, and then all the money woes are over for everybody. So we got, in the human form, there's some boogers. And there's nobody immune from them, and especially this one. You know, just always one thought away. One thought away. So grounded, practical, spiritual ways of being with whatever is included in the physical a little differently. So my guided this morning was in listening, in the truck driving over, PJ said, Lord, I was getting crazier and crazier. There was something going on, and I just had to go, girl, go to God. Just go to God. So she had to reel it in. Have you ever had those moments? It's like, well, the more I try to stick my nose in here, the more I try to advise, coach, and counsel, the more I try to get them off their wayward ways, the harder and faster they go. And somewhere I got to go, oh, wake up, girl. Back to yourself. And PJ said it as, I had to go to God. I had to go to God. And whatever, God doesn't work for you, use anything. Go to sanity, go to clarity, go to integrity, go to abundance, go to life, go to force, go to manna, go to whatever word works for you. But what is solid ground? What is a place that passes understanding? How I could have this kind of peace in a situation like this wouldn't make sense even to me. And it certainly wouldn't make sense to those around us. And there's all the power of the universe is in that place. And I remembered years ago going to this little old country church, Bug Tussle, Kentucky. Y'all remember where I'm from? And this family had sent their two little boys to church, and they didn't want to go to church, but they sent the kids because You're supposed to. And the boys decided they're going to play in the woods that day instead because they were confident nobody would notice that they weren't there. Well, guess what happened? They noticed. So the pastor called the family and said, "Where were the boys today?" And the family said, "Well, they're at church. Like we dropped them off at church." And he said, "Well, no, they weren't here." So the boys were there like they'd been to church, ready to get picked up. So the parents were like, "Where you been? We know you wasn't in church today." Holy. Okay, go in front of the pastor. So the pastor now's got to teach them a lesson. He's got to get through to them how important it is, where church is, and where God is, and what God is. So he brought them in one at a time, the little boys, and he just brought the first one up to teach him a lesson, and he just kept saying over and over to this little guy, "Where's God? Where's God? I want you to tell me, where's God?" And the little guy's just getting more and more scared, and eyeballs up to here. He couldn't answer, "Where's God? You tell me, where's God?" And the little guy just got up, freaked out, and went running out of the room. And he ran down, and his little friend was sitting there, and he said, "It's worse than we thought. God is missing, and they think we have him." So, let's get out of here. And I remember, well, just how funny it is that anybody in the world thinks they know where God is, and how we fall under a spell of what we've been taught and encouraged about without ever questioning, is that true? Is that actually true for me? That could be their convictions, and if that's their convictions, Godspeed. But it's not my conviction. It's not actually what I believe. So what is it we do believe about it? Like, how would you answer the question, where's God? So, to live a life contemplative, like truly contemplating this, like, where's God? Where's God? And then it was this shift, and I used this recently again from, like I read, like, well, God is nowhere. And it's like the old me would have went, and like the clear me goes, yes, there's, that God is nowhere. That God of my little limited understanding, that God, that little belief that thought God's my Santa Claus, no offense, Chris, that God is my Santa Claus, if I'm a good girl and I put my list in, and I pray daily, and I it'll all just come right to my feet. And then when it doesn't, where does it leave me? Where does it leave my relationship with God? So nowhere, there is nowhere with God. So think about then shifting that nowhere to now here. Just one letter moves. Now here. So in any situation, the way she just looked at me, now here. God's now here. God's now here. The way they just roll their eyes at me, like, now here, now here. They didn't invite me to their party. Like, God spared me for it. I just not caught up to that yet. Now here. Now here. You know what I'm talking about? Where you claim you want to go to their parties and you're mad because you didn't get an invite. But then you never go in and say, did I really want to go to that party? And the answer is no. But we pretend we did. Because we've got it set up as they owe me something, or after all I've done for her. Instead of like, I didn't even want to go to begin with. Like I was just the last to know. So like true contemplation. So it's our basic principles in New Thought. One power and one presence in all the universe. God is, this is my little simple way that I have to stay with this. God is, or reality is, whatever you call it, I am. I pray that way. I affirm that way. I treat that way. So I speak that way. I express that way. So God is, I am, I think that way, I pray that way, and then I respond that way, which is why I say these principles should have been inverted. Because I was pretty quick to traipse around for about 2 decades going, there's one power, one presence in all the universe. It is good. How are you? Fine, fine. It's like, well, tell your face, because it ain't caught up to how fine you are. Versus the fifth principle, unity's fifth principle, is to live this out. So the more I live it out, the more I pray that way, the more I think that way, the more I demonstrate that way, the more I express that way, then I'm more likely to experience God is, I am. Instead of waiting for God is, I am, and I'll just be a knucklehead and see how it falls. Versus, no, I got to start with changing a few things. And guess where? And rinse and repeat. So this is from an author named Jim Palmer. And he says, you will never find a separate God. Does this sound familiar? Sound like New Thought? You won't find a separate God. There is not a separate God. A God that is located somewhere in space and time. God is space and time. God is through and as all things. Sound familiar? So, is it true or not that God is in and as and through all things? Not that attitude. No. I reject. Welcome to hell. So, whatever we reject, what's the law? Whatever I resist? Oh, okay. So resistance would not be a sane, sensible thing to do here anymore. If the word God doesn't work for you, find one. Grace, whatever, abundance, buttermilk, just, pick something. So let's get a sense of this then. What if this is true? There's no God out there. There's no God that I got to find. There's no God that's lost. And that I am not separate from it. So whatever I'm experiencing is a part of it, the thing itself. And yes, it hurts. And yes, there's loss. And yes, there's grief. And yes, there's change. And yes, there's shock and devastation and despair and addictions. Yes. And I won't ever understand all of that in this dimension. And it's a part of my awakening. So there's some power then in me being with this differently. And then changing what I can. Sound familiar? Accepting what I cannot. And waking up to the difference. Then rinse and repeat. So, I invite you to say out loud, I'm here today for my awakening. I'm here today for my awakening. And then feel it. I might say it again or silently and then feel it. I'm here today for my awakening. We are here today for our awakening. And we begin again today in our awakening. So whatever appears within the lived human experience is not outside of God. We're here today to accept that we share and have burdens like that, and to do our best not to let our hearts be as troubled by that, knowing and standing and referring again and again and again to the truth that whatever appears in my lived human experience is for my human learning processes, my awakening. So let us be freer today, even in our fragility, even in our temperance, impermanence, the transitory, ever-changing way of reality. And let us live out. Let me live out. There's one power and one presence in all the universe. And the difference of separation and real oneness, true oneness, and not oneness as a concept, but oneness as an embodiment, solid ground. And today's the day again. All blessings to you. And if I can ever serve you in any way, marthacreek.com is the way to get in touch with me. And I know who you are. I also know what you are. And I know deeply what your roles are here, based on what I believe I'm here to do, and you're here to do, which is why we're together, which is to serve those who serve, and to serve those who will serve, and to serve those who will come back over here one more time, one more book, one more prayer, one more singing, one more workshop, one more session, one more rant, whatever it takes to stay in integrity with our own soul. And I know that the better I stay in touch with my soul, the quicker and faster that moves me toward my goals. So serve the soul and then serve the goals, and what power there is in that. And hang around today if you can, or come back at 12:30 and I'll torment you another few minutes. Yeah.
MarthaCreek.com if I can support you. Blessings.